introduction. My first real memory of Dana was actually helping him type in the business directory in Cannabis Canada back in a small office space in a building that's now burnt down in Vancouver at East Hastings. And Dana has put himself out in many different ways over the past 14 years that I've seen, and I really admire the work that he's done. He's been one of the most reasonable and honest, forthright people that I've seen working in this movement, and I've seen hundreds, and I'm really glad to have him come over and share his thoughts on this today. And again, best of luck with your dispensary, Dana.
Thanks, Ted. It's wonderful to be here, and I'm just going to say a few things to everybody here, some thoughts to keep in mind while we're here celebrating the world's most wonderful plant, the marijuana plant, which is clearly, and the marijuana plant is without a doubt the world's best plant. There is absolutely no other plant that has the broad range of medicinal, social, industrial, nutritional, beneficial uses that the marijuana plant does. But I want to remind us that what we call the war on drugs is not just a war on the marijuana plant, it's really a war on all of the world's best plants. And these things that we often think of as dangerous drugs are really plant extracts from the world's best, most sacred plants. The coca plant, the opium poppy, peyote, and psychedelic mushrooms. All of these plants have a long history of beneficial, medicinal, social, spiritual use that predates recorded history. And in every case, for instance, the coca leaf. Chewing coca leaf is actually highly beneficial. Coca leaf, by weight, has got more protein than meat and more calcium than milk. It's full of vitamins and nutrients, and chewing coca leaf is a very beneficial experience for those who use it. And we should remember that these plants in their natural form are something that helps connect us to the earth. And we should be respecting and using these plants in a beneficial way and not prohibiting them with the full force of criminal law. But at the same time, we all know and recognize that marijuana is the queen of all plants. And while we celebrate marijuana and cannabis here today, I want to share with you a dream that I have of a future that we can share together. I want you to imagine yourself in your later years of your life as a grandfather or grandmother, many years from now. And you're living in a home that's built out of hemp. No trees died to make that home. Your grandson or granddaughter's there reading their textbook, eating their hemp cereal for breakfast with some hemp milk, and you're smoking a legal bowl of marijuana, or perhaps consuming some extracts to help ease you with the pains of old age. And soon you'll be driving that young one to school in a car built out of hemp that runs on hemp fuel on a road paved with hemp. And your grandson or granddaughter is there reading their textbook, and they turn to you and they say, is it true that when you were younger that hemp was illegal and that people would go to jail for growing cannabis? Is it true, Grandma and Granddad, that there was a time that it was really true that this plant was banned and there was this thing called the war on drugs, which is a war on cannabis? And I want you to be able to say, yes, it is true. And you know what? I helped end that war, and I made a difference. That I helped do something to free the people that were in prison and to save the world with the environmental benefits of cannabis. That I didn't just enjoy this plant, I gave back to this plant that has given so much to me. Because all of us here have benefited so much from using marijuana and from enjoying this plant and the wonderful benefits it's given us. And I urge you to give something back to this plant and to do something to help end the war on marijuana, to end this war on all of the world's most wonderful, beautiful, sacred plants, so that you can look your children and your grandchildren in the eye and you can live a life that is peaceful and happy and not pass this war on to the next generation as it has been passed on to us. And it is such a shame that all of us here have grown up in a world that we have never seen. We have never seen a world without a war on drugs. And so sometimes we might think it's natural that things are this way. But I tell you, this is not natural. This is an aberration. This is a terrible nightmare. And we must wake up. And those of us here, we have woken up. And we must end this war. And we must wake up the world to the fact that these plants are our friends and allies. And they will help us transition through the most difficult times that we are facing. So please do something, get involved, join a political party, write a letter to your newspapers, donate some money, talk to Ted Smith and help him out. Do what you can, do something so that you can look your children and grandchildren in the eye and you can say, I helped to end this war. Let's talk a little bit about this new law that the Conservatives want to introduce called Bill C-15. And if this law passes, very bad things will happen to our marijuana community, to the cannabis culture, and to many of the most vulnerable people in our society. And we have to do what we can to stop this new law. This new law will introduce a mandatory 6-month jail sentence for growing 1 marijuana plant in your home. This law will introduce another 6-month mandatory jail sentence for people like Ted Smith that sell marijuana through a medical dispensary or anything else. If you have more than a certain relatively small amount of marijuana for sale at a time, then you get 6 months in jail. Selling any quantity of other banned drugs will get you time in jail automatically if you're somewhere near a school or a university or anywhere that young people gather, which is pretty much anywhere in any big city. And so we have to fight this law. We have to make sure this law does not pass, because bad things will happen if it passes, I assure you. And we're already facing a pretty bad situation in many ways in this country. And the NDP has said they will oppose this law, but the Liberal Party has not really decided where they're going to stand on it yet. But I assure you the Conservatives will continue to push this kind of thing forward over and over again until they get it through or until they don't have the opportunity to bring it forward. And I just want to talk about something else as well, actually, and give you an update on my friend. I get asked about my friend Mark Emery a lot and what his situation is, and people aren't always clear if he's still in the country or what's going on, but I assure you that Mark Emery, otherwise known as the Prince of Pot, he is not in jail. He's working very hard at his store, the BC Marijuana Party store. His wife, Jody Emery, is going to be running as a candidate for the Green Party provincially in the upcoming election, which is very exciting. But Mark is facing a very desperate situation for the act of selling marijuana seeds by mail order to our American friends across the border. The American government is seeking his extradition, and most likely he would receive a 30-year jail sentence if he is extradited to the U.S. And what is shocking about this is that our own Canadian government has refused to do anything about this other than to seek to hand him over to the Americans. And I believe that if he's breaking Canadian laws, which would be exporting marijuana, he should be charged in Canada with the crime of exporting marijuana seeds. And this crime would probably get jail time, maybe a few weeks or a few months. He might get a fine, who knows. But this is Canada, and our laws should apply to Canadians. We should not be extraditing Canadians to other countries for crimes allegedly committed in Canada. That's a real abrogation of our sovereignty, and it's something we should be working to oppose. And if you go to noextradition.net or cannabisculture.com, you can help Mark Emery read about his efforts. But what is nice about our country is, despite that he's facing extradition, he continues to be a very busy activist, and his BC Marijuana Party store is grown quite a bit with extra vapor lounges and space up above. It's quite a wonderful place, and if you're in Vancouver, I urge you to come on down to the 300 block of West Hastings and visit the BC Marijuana Party store. And while you're there, after you leave, you should head on down to the Vancouver Seed Bank and to the medical cannabis dispensary, which I operate on East Hastings, on the 800 block of East Hastings. And we've got a lot of good plans for our area. Our dispensary is the 3rd one in the city of Vancouver, and it's growing quite rapidly. And our Vancouver Seed Bank sells not only marijuana seeds, but also seeds and cuttings from many other forbidden and interesting plants. Because, as I've been saying, this is not just about marijuana, it's about our connection to all of the world's best plants. And marijuana, being the queen of plants, is the one we want the most access to, but what we are seeing now is more and more herbs and medicines being moved out of the general sphere and into a prohibitionary state. And our government is working more and more to ban more and more other medicinal herbs. And this has to stop. Otherwise, we will soon see echinacea and vitamin C being treated the same way as marijuana is being treated now. And we have to ensure that we maintain our access to all of these most beneficial plants and medicines. Because it's about more than just marijuana. It's about our freedom to have connection to the earth and to have access to the world's plants in this wonderful way. And I'm starting to get hoarse now, so I'm going to give it back to Ted. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Dana, and thanks again for coming over.